You're right there guys, this is Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft, and this is a Airsoft site review of Skirmish Sherwood, an outdoor site near Mansfield that's been operating for a few years now, but one that's kept me coming back to it time and time again. So Skirmish Sherwood is located roughly about halfway between Mansfield and Worksop. It's got good road access, and frankly it's the only notable thing on the road in question, so you'd have to be trying exceptionally hard to miss the site entrance. The entrance itself is clearly signposted on the B6034 from Arlington Road, and by following the single track road down through the gate, it will take you directly into the safe zone itself. There's plenty of parking in the safe zone, as the wide open space can accommodate a lot of cars, but spaces aren't marked, so often they'll have a staff member out directing people where to park up. As for facilities, they do have dedicated bathrooms on site, and the safe zone is spacious and well constructed. Your kit will be safe from the elements here, with plenty of capacity for people to set up, even on exceptionally busy days. So walk-on prices for the day are £25 if you are a member of the site and £30 if you're not, and if you're wanting a higher package, it's £40 total. That higher package includes a gun, face mask and ammo, and there is a £10 deposit to be paid in advance. If you are turning up with your own kit, that's more just so they can gauge numbers, so they know how much food to cook and how many people to expect. But if you are doing the higher package, you absolutely need to put that £10 deposit down, otherwise you may not actually secure the higher package. I should note as well that in that price, food is not included. They do serve hot food on site, however, so if you don't bring any packed lunch with you, you can buy like a baked potato or a hamburger, something like that on the day. They also sell like a standard fare of drinks, snacks and general airsoft consumables, so gas, BBs, ammo. There is a small shop on site as well with some extra airsoft bits for you. Now, for me personally, I think £30 is a perfectly reasonable price for a full day of airsoft. I just remember though, if you are wanting hot food on the day, bring about an extra £5 or so just to make sure you've got something. So the impression I got from staff on the site then, first of all, welcoming, friendly, professional, absolutely great things on show there. I did detect, however, a little bit of going through the motions maybe, and there were two examples of what I mean by this. The first one was during the first game, we had all set out for a quick TDM and there was a very large group of rental players on the site. And to me, the obvious solution to make this fair and balanced would be to split that group in two, put like half of the new players on either team, so you've got a good mix of skill levels. What happened instead is that they just all put them onto one team, and naturally that first game was a whitewash as a result. I don't think it would have took that much more forethought to just think, yeah, let's get the new people spread evenly to try and make that game a bit more fair and balanced. A little bit more thought and effort could have just made that game balanced, I think. Another thing that I noticed was during the morning safety brief. So for the full brief, they gathered everyone up and to go through all the information. The information was clear, concise. They answered every question that was asked for them. Great. What happened then is they would take the rentals over or new players to one side, just to give them a bit more of an in-depth one, and the seasoned players were invited to go back to the benches and use the extra time to finish setting up. What this did result though was a little bit of conflicting information. So I was asking them at the time, is there like a surrender or a bang kill rule on the site? And they told the majority of players, no, there wasn't. But I distinctly overheard when I was walking past later on the group of rentals being told how to surrender kill somebody. So I think, whilst I understand from a time-saving perspective, and Lord knows we've all been bored to death by like safety briefs just over the years, they just become exceptionally repetitive and you want to get rid of that, I understand that. However, that information needs to be both presented to everybody and consistently. If you split off the group, there is a chance that conflicting information may go between them and confusion may arise as a result. One thing I did notice as well, they didn't mention the site FPS limits during the brief. What they did do, however, is they had a bunch of like laminated sheets on the walls showing what it was there. So that was, in my opinion, quite a good time-saving measure, because the information is there, everyone can see it on all the walls of the safety zone, so you can always just check it, so it's stated, but it's not something that needs to be repeated in the morning brief, cuts that time down, so that is a good time-saving measure in my opinion. One thing I would have liked to have seen though, the chrono. So people were obviously invited up to chrono before the game, and they had like the actual joules and FPS limits for each individual BB, so you didn't need to use their own twos to check it, you could just use your own weights. But they weren't marking guns that had passed the chrono test with like little coloured zip ties. So I think that test could be a bit less reliant on trust than it currently is, but that's just a little thing to improve on. So that's the staff, but what about the players? Now, the impression I got was really quite good from the players. Non-hit taking was about standard for like an airsoft site. There was one or two instances where I was looking through the scope and I was pretty convinced I had, but the vast majority of these were on the rental players, and when it's a kid's first time airsofting, yeah, you can't really take like too many hard feelings from that. They'll learn with time. But the rest of the players, yeah, hit taking was actually really quite good for the day, so really good about that. What I really did like as well was how like energetic and communicative the players were on that day. Like, this was in the middle of January when I turned up. It was a cold day. I was expecting people to, not really be ready for it, a bit huddled up, like, don't want to be outside, it's a bit cold today. But like, spirits were high. Like, everyone was communicating, they were talking, they're like making plans. Oh, I'll push, I'll cover you, and like, there was a lot of teamwork on show, and from both sides, and I really liked that. It kept morale high, kept spirits going, and it gave a real energy to the day. So yeah, props to the players for that. So what's the terrain of the site like? How does it feel to play on? Well, the easiest way to describe this to you is to just say it's a paintball site. And that comes with a lot of expectations already. You can expect themed and distinct game zones throughout the day. Sometimes you will be playing across multiple of them in certain game types, and don't be surprised as well if your kit comes home covered in paintball residue from the barricades. And that's an inevitability from playing at any site that also does paintballing. The forest itself does have a slight gradient to it, but the ground is rather flat and clear of obstacles, meaning that these areas are really easy to sprint up and down, and are really lacking in visual cover like foliage, especially during the winter months. Some of the other game zones, however, are a touch more overgrown, and during the summer you can expect a thick carpet of ferns to hide in. Sniping at this site can either be a dream or more tricky, depending entirely on which map you happen to be playing on at any given time. Being a paintball site, man-made cover is both solid and plentiful, again ranging on type throughout the game zones, from stacked metal boxes or barrels to a wooden town, a giant compound or fort, and actual armoured cars. That said, however, some of the wooden structures are starting to show their age somewhat. Some have had their upper levels cordoned off, and others are just not allowed in play due to safety concerns. It would definitely be prudent for this site to consider tearing down some of these aging structures and rebuilding or improving them at some point in the near future. So what game modes were on offer during the day then? Well, as mentioned, the first one was a very quick team deathmatch around the armoured car region, and based on the distribution of players as mentioned earlier, this was exceptionally brief and over in a few minutes, purely because all the rentals had been put on one side. The game itself, fine, but the team balancing kind of decided that one before it even started. The next game, however, was an attack-defend at the town with an interesting twist. Attackers had unlimited regen, but defenders had unlimited medics. The twist: the defending team only had 2 designated people that could medic, and once they were dead and they could never be medicked or revived themselves, the defenders had no way to get themselves back into the game. So taking out those 2 medics and finding where they were, that was the theme and the priority of the game. The map was a great spot for this as well. I found myself constantly trying out new ingress routes to try and find angles to try and pressure the defenders and root out where those medics were hidden. The next game was a quick bomb delivery before lunch, and again, attackers had limited regens, but they had to carry a bomb case in the compound in order to win. Defenders were on 1 hit dead and had to stay within the confines of that compound. Very quick game on this one, but it was supposed to be as something of a time filler before lunch. Great choice of location though, as that compound is exceptionally hard to breach directly, but attackers can very easily surround it unless the defenders expose themselves whilst attempting to stop those flanking players. The game after lunch was a classic fallback, played across the tank field, the one with the barrels and the netting, and then finding the holdout in the fort at the top of the site. When hit, defenders would have to fall back and respawn in the next field, and when they were hit at the last location, they were out entirely. Attackers had unlimited regen from a marshal that was shadowing the furthest attacker back, so this encouraged the team to constantly be pushing forwards. They did also have to deliver a bomb to the fort, but this felt more as like a thing tacked on as opposed to an actual game mechanic, something that you shouldn't try to forget as opposed to something to really worry about. There is basically a good reason why you'll encounter fallback games at every site. The sense of movement and progression they give is great for keeping players engaged and exploring new angles of the site constantly without being bogged down in any way in particular for a length of time. And this was a great example of one of those types of games. The final game for me was a turnaround from the earlier medic game in the village with the sides and spawn location swapped. And the following after that was a turnaround and fallback, but sadly my knees had given up at that point, so I had to call it a day before that game. One small thing I did like about the structure of the games is that they didn't do the turnaround games immediately after the first one of the same type. This kept the day a lot more fresher, despite running repeat swap side game modes later on. Definitely something that other sites should try and emulate. So to summarise then, should you pay a visit to Skirmish Sherwood? Now, in years past, this was my go-to site for introducing new people to the sport of airsoft because I knew I could rely on it to have a consistently good day out, and they had high-quality facilities. It was a really comfortable way to ease people in and let them try airsoft for the first time. And I'm really happy to report that this is still very much the case. It was exceptionally well run on the day, the games were good, I had a lot of fun with it. If I may be so bold, I am detecting a little touch of complacency, however. I think because it's been a good, consistent site for so long that maybe they're not really feeling the need to try and put that extra little bit of effort in. Now, I could be wrong on this. It could just be, it's the middle of January. They had like a half capacity day and they didn't want to waste their A game on like a day when not that many people were turning up. And it's not even like it's a hard issue to fix. Like a fresh injection of enthusiasm, new ideas and game modes and that could just solve that immediately, and then this would be a perfect site. I would also like to add coloured tags for the chrono. It's good that you've got it all set up and you've got the sheets and everything, but you do need to make sure that you have a way of proving that people have done that test. Make it a bit less trust reliant. But yeah, I can wholeheartedly recommend this site. I've enjoyed my time there basically every time I've gone. I don't think I've ever had a bad day there, actually, thinking back on it. So yeah, easy recommendation for me. If you're in the area, yeah, Skirmish Sherwood is well worth the visit. Now, I hope you've enjoyed my Airsoft site review of Skirmish Sherwood. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask me, or maybe you want to share your own experiences of the site, leave them in the comment section down below. And until next time, this has been Dale of Learn More About Airsoft.